Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be looking at some off-grid knives. This right here is the off-grid Stinger XL. I reviewed it last year on the channel. I like it a lot. This is just a pretty big knife with a 4-inch blade. It's not the best slicer because of the low flat grind, but it was comfortable. It had great action, but I always wished there was a smaller version. Well, now they dropped the Stinger EDC. This is the all blacked out version, and we have the coyote tan with the gray washed blade. The Stinger EDC, we not only have a more manageable size at 7.05 inches long, but we also have a much more EDC friendly blade that should perform much better for doing day-to-day EDC tasks with a versatile drop point that is coming in at 3 inches long. So it should be legal in a lot more areas than this 4-inch monster, because there are a lot of places that have 3 and under blade laws. Plus we have a full flat grind on 154 cm steel that comes down to around 17 thousandths behind the edge. So this should slice far better than its bigger brother. We also have some nice functional long row of jimping that grips that thumb nicely. And they also gave us a good sharpening choil that should give you some sharpening light before it starts to widen back here. So now I think it's time we do a little bit of cutting. The knife came pretty darn sharp out of box. Most of the off-grid knives I get do usually come pretty darn sharp. It felt like it had some bite to it, and that full flat grind is definitely slicing really well. It feels nice and thin behind the edge, and so far so good. Now we're going to test the ergos on this piece of pine, kind of see how that edge wants to bite. Definitely was, grabbing the wood really quickly. It started increasing pressure more and more, and the handle fills out the hand really, really nicely. And for the most part, I had no hot spots to speak of until I kind of started really bearing down into this wood toward the end. You have a shorter handle, being that it's a, smaller knife, and that wider pocket clip, the top part of the pocket clip was kind of digging into my palm, but only whenever I was really, really bearing down. It wasn't terrible or anything. I could just feel it. Now move to the 1/2-inch sisal rope, and this is where I could tell that the knife did have some aggression to it. That low tip drop point is excellent on cutting on a flat surface, and it's slicing pretty darn well. 154 cm is an excellent steel, and it's one that I love to see on sub $100 knives, especially because it's a very easy steel for companies to heat treat on large batches of knives. So this one, like I said, is performing really well. It's slicing really well. That pinch grip, the pinch grip that I'm using right now is nice and comfortable, and that thinness in that toward that tip is really nice as well. It's making my job a lot easier, should I say. You can see me doing that pointer finger grip, only something I can do when the knife has a good edge on it. And I try to switch it up whenever I can do that because of the blisters I get from doing these tests. It's not feeling like it's slowing down. We end up getting through 75 cuts before I run out of the piece that I cut. And the edge still feels really good. We'll see in just a second. I'm able to get that tip down, but it is a little bit above that pivot, so you do have to raise your hand up a good little bit. But definitely get that belly down onto what you're cutting. But yeah, that edge is still really, really nice at this point. It's moving through all the materials good. That coating's not causing a whole lot of friction. And yeah, it definitely performing better than the Stinger XL because that has a pretty thick grind. But here you can still see that still has a good bit of bite, and I definitely give this a plus on performance compared to its bigger brother, the XL. Let's check that edge after that cutting. I've always had good luck with off-grid knives. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Never had any of them that had any edge problems or bad edges or anything. Very nice. Definitely impressed by the performance. Now let's take a look at the deployment and action of the knife. This is a flipper deployment knife with some nice jimping there. Well placed flipper tab right in front of that pivot. This thing's got a very good detent. It rockets out, and they're both very consistent. This one's been carried and used more, so it's a lot more drop shut, if you'd like to say. Riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball. Very, very snappy. Now let's take a look at the handle area. You have G10 scales that have a nice little contour on them. And I like the thickness of these scales. They fill out the hand nicely, coming in at 0.58 inches thick. So anything above ½ inch is usually more comfortable when it comes to the ergos because it fills the hand out better. And you're not having to squeeze as hard to make sure that knife stays stable in the hand. And something I talked about during the cutting is, for the most part, the ergos are really good. Whenever I start bearing down into, say, the wood that I was doing and squeezing the knife hard, this wider clip right here, the top portion, grabs a hold of my hand right here. And it's not terrible, but I could definitely feel that clip. Now, if you had large or extra large hands, you would probably feel that more, and this handle would probably be a little small for you, so you'd probably need to go to the XL. I think a medium-sized version of this would be outstanding. Hopefully that's something we see in the near future. You have some nice milling here on the G10 scales, nice chamfers going all the way around, no sharp spots where you don't want them to be. You have a T8 pivot and T8 body screws. Love seeing that. The only T6 screws you have are for the pocket clip. That is deep carry and reversible. As you can see, I like how he does 3 screws there. So this clip is not moving at all, and it sits all the way down into the pocket. Goes in and out of the pocket nicely. You got enough spring tension there to hold it in the pocket, and it's not overly aggressive and nothing tearing up the pockets because of the smooth G10. The clip is countersunk into the G10 along with those screws. Outstanding job. We have flow-through construction with 2 standoffs in the back here. And there's your stop pin right there. Very easy just to blow it out, clean it out with some compressed air. You do have a little bit of skeletonization on the show side scale to bring down the weight a little. Coming in at 107.6 grams or 3.795 ounces. Your balance point is a little bit butt heavy, but didn't really notice it in hand much. Your lockup on the knife is sitting at around 40, maybe even 50% or so. Access to the lock bar is good because this side comes down a little bit further. You got a little chamfer right there on the lock bar. It's not super comfortable when I'm doing it with my thumb. I think just because of this top edge right there, it's not bad or anything, but when I use this portion of my thumb, it's perfectly fine, no problem. The lockup on mine is very, very solid. That's one thing with off-grid knives. I've never had one fail on me, and they've always been very tight in the lockup department. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. It's much more in line with the Rat 2. Next, we have the Kaiser Drop Bear and the QSP Penguin. And lastly, we have the Civivi Elementum and the QSP Canary Folder. Now, for my nitpicks and complaints, I would have liked to see a little bit more internal milling. You can see where they got that milling on the top. They could have put a little bit more back here and maybe some at the bottom just to balance out the knife a little bit. Nothing bad or anything, just something that would have been nice. Also, I talked about earlier, this wide pocket clip on a small knife being all the way to the back right here. This portion right here was kind of digging into my palm only whenever I was bearing down on it. So it's just a nitpick there. And I would definitely like to see a medium-sized version of this. Maybe one with a 3.5-inch blade or somewhere in that area. That would be awesome. And just a nitpick as far as aesthetics go. I don't love, those look like kind of parts bin standoffs back there, but you know, not hurting the functionality of the knife whatsoever. So what are my final thoughts? I already liked the XL version a lot, but it's not one that I EDC'd a whole lot because it's a big old knife and it's a little bit heavier and doesn't slice as good as this brand new Stinger EDC. I think this is an awesome knife. I love off-grid knives. It performed outstanding. It's nice and slicey. It's got good action. It carries well, and I am really excited to see the direction that SC Off-Grid going. You know, they're trying to bring us more EDC friendly options like they did in the past. I also like the fact that they're getting these produced in Taiwan. The Taiwanese have excellent knife factories, and they usually do an excellent job with fit and finish and heat treat and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see them outsourcing it to Taiwan. So yeah, this one is appealing to you and none of the things I talked about are deal breakers, then yes, I can highly recommend the knife. I absolutely love it, and I think it's an excellent EDC knife. So there you go. If any of these interest you, I will have links down in the description. There are affiliate links, so if you want to help support what I do here on the channel, that is one way to do so. If not, no harm, no foul. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Hey!